I'm Ava Laura.
And I'm Jessica.
And this is Black Leave America podcast, where we highlight holistic wellness, travel, mental health, and self-care through traveling outside of America to reconnect and rediscover who you are. It's time for us to leave any condition that disrupts our peace. Black Women Leave America opens your eyes and explores new ways of living, but more importantly, new ways of being. Because sometimes you have to leave in order to find yourself. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Black Women Leave America, the live edition. I'm really excited for this episode for so many reasons, but we'll get into that. I'm your host, Ava Laura, and this is your amazing host. I don't know what I'm doing.
Person. Okay. Jessica. My name. I think my name is Jessica today. Yes. Okay.
If y'all listening on the podcast, you don't see what's going on over here. So head on over to YouTube. You can listen to us and it's wonderful, but come on over to YouTube for the full experience. Okay.
Entire experience.
Listen, so we are continuing our post, I'm gonna call it the post-election exodus.
Oh, that's a good one.
We're continuing our post-election exodus coverage, right? A lot of people really upset, especially Black women. You know, we are going through the ringer right now. A lot of us are really in our feelings. We're still grappling with everything that's going on, facing another 4 years. And it's really not even 4 years. It's beyond 4 years because everything that's done within that 4 years is going to carry over. Right. And so a lot of you are really, truly considering moving abroad as one of your options, right? But so many of us get stuck. We get stuck in our head. Oh, I was thinking about moving to Ghana, or I was thinking about moving here. Oh, I was looking at Portugal. Oh, wow, I was thinking about Belize. But you never get that point. You never get past thinking about it.
Right.
So today we're going to talk about that. Like, what does it take if you are a beginner, you're starting from jump? What does it take from you to get to where you are right now, to thinking about moving abroad, to hopping on over that, to actually moving abroad?
And we also get that question around, what do I do first? What's the first step? What does that even look like? Right. And I believe you already have the answers inside of you. So anyway.
Okay, thank you, Yoda.
All right. I'm putting the stage for our guests because our guests, I'm sure, is going to take it there.
Now, the reason I'm really excited, one, because we're answering a question that so many of you are asking and grappling with. But two, I'm really excited for our special guest today who has been here before. You all love her. You still ask about her.
Right. We still get comments.
Yeah, like I think her interview was on a year or 2 years ago. I don't even remember. That was so long ago.
She's our highest viewed video, 17,000 views. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, wow, I wonder what it was I did with that one. That just, I don't know, but maybe it's the BBB, right? It's like blessings Barbara found in Belize. Right. It was all of those different bees together that just made a unison where folks are just loving that episode.
Y'all had a lot of questions. Y'all still asking. So Barbara from Belize is back. Yay. And she's, and of course we can talk a little bit about Belize, just a little bit, but she's really going to be talking about like, what does it take to move from where you are? I want to move to now I'm here.
Right. So without further ado, you want to do an introduction?
Go ahead. You got the.
Okay. You ready? Hold on. I kind of feel like it should be different. I got to get different types of drums, but we're just going to go with the drums I got, y'all. Or no, let's go with the hand applause. Well.
It's so good to see you all. The claps, the snaps, all of it.
That's not really Belize, but anyway. Welcome to the show,
Thank you so much. It's so good to be back with both of you.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
we are
yes.
happy to have you. And so, before we get started, like I said, we're really going to get into the nitty gritty of what a beginner needs to do. But update us, like, how have you been since the last time you were here? What's new in your world?
Wow, it's been a while. I'll first say that I've been in Belize 6 years, and I think you and I reconnected maybe about 2.5, 3 years ago. And at that point, we were just talking about the cultural assimilation process, how to select the perfect place or environment for you, which is kind of where I was in terms of my cultural assimilation. I had made it through that first 3 years and I was getting comfortable in the country. I had some lessons learned to share. And now I've kind of taken that beyond that. I have, of course, grown myself here, both, personally. I'm going to say professionally, but I'm not working in the same way that most Americans work here. So we'll come back to that later. And then culturally, so what has happened is that I've expanded my circle, I've expanded my family, I've expanded my practices. And I've changed. I'm put a period right there. I've changed, and then I've also have changed my values and mindset based on those lessons and that expansion of my space, right?
Mm.
And so I'm not ever going back to the USA.
Y'all
And
heard it here. She ain't going back.
I will go, for a few days at a time to visit, but I've been able to make some even stronger and more affirmative choices for myself since, we last spoke. And I think it's relevant to today's conversation about how do people make that move, right? And I want to say that move and making that move never stops because you're in a new place constantly. I mean, you think back to your childhood and your adolescence and your early adult years, it's a constant evolution. You didn't just get to college or get to your first job and say you arrived and you're done. No, you decide the path that you're going on, you start, you make some decisions, and then you're constantly, shape shifting and moving. And so, that takes me to the first thing, which is mindset. And then we can go on. There's so many different things
I want
about
to say
that. But
something about
that's
that
where I
too.
am right now since we last spoke. Yeah.
What's so interesting about what you said, and it's true, right? We have these different phases. You think about it. We have our childhood, we go through adolescence, puberty, we go through adulthood, and all of these things. We're constantly moving and changing. I think one of the reasons that people do remain stagnant and are feeling stuck and are unhappy in the US is because they don't really look at that. They kind of get into their rhythm, into their routine, and they just stay stuck right there. And they don't
Yeah.
consider I should always be moving, changing, looking for more, doing something different. We get stuck. But I think it's natural that when you move to another place, even if it's just to another state, you know,
Yeah.
you're thinking about changing now because your environment has naturally changed. So you kind of
Mhm.
start to move with that environment.
Yeah, yeah. And so you have to do some real soul searching too, right? Because you don't want to be constantly adapting to the environment. You want to show up as your true authentic self so that you can be comfortable, so that you can be productive. And I think one of the realizations that I have had about our routine as Americans, the fallacy of what we believe our routine is and the practices that we do on a day-to-day basis, we tend to believe that they are our own. And usually they're not our own. They are of the system. They are of that environment that we have grown up in that has taught us that we're supposed to do certain things every day and in a certain way. And so if we have bought into that, adopted, and it's okay. I don't want to talk about it in such a negative way because those same systems do support us and strengthen us and allow us many opportunities. But if we become victim to them in a way that we are operating in them and we don't see self, right? We become part of it. Then it almost becomes impossible to move. You
Yeah.
just get stuck and become in a worse situation.
Yeah.
Right. So that first thing is mindset about why you're moving and how you're moving, and really soul searching for your values, And if you've done those two things, you get to the third thing really easily, which is finding the right place for you. But if you've done those two things, that place finds you. You don't have to find that place. It will just kind of unfold, and the space for you to go to, it might be some place you've already been, or a new venture, but it will align to your mindset and your values that you find when you start soul searching.
I do want to ask a question, right? How did you handle any fears or anxieties about that transition when you made that first big transition?
Can I just say I'm a fool? you know, you have that foolish, innocence about you. I do have some of that, and I take that with me into the second phase of my life, primarily because I feel like you win or you learn, and that there are no losses, right? And so that's how I deal with fear. And I'm like, bring it on, because on the other side of fear is risk, and on the other side of risk is opportunity. So you kind of have to go through all of those phases to get to the things that you want anyway. But that's something that I've learned over years in my life, for those who are just coming to join us. I've had 20, 30 years of business experience. I'm a single mother, 15 years of parenting, doctoring, 3 advanced degrees. And so those are lessons that I don't take lightly. I'm grateful that I've been able to learn. But if you don't have those experiences, you will want to put yourself in a place where you can gain them or be open to them. And that will be the fourth lesson. Fourth step is to create a community, to be open to create a community for wherever you're going, and that, space, whether it's a country or type of people doing the things that you're doing, because you want to be learned in your experience. You don't want to be ignorant. When you get to places and you start asking questions of locals, you want to show them that you have genuine interest. You're not just on this Trump or Harris, exodus, right? That this is about you and the place that you are at. It just happens to be timely and associated with some political dynamics for some people.
Yeah. I want to go back. So what's interesting about what you said is that you actually have to do some of that healing, some of that internal work first. And I find that to be very interesting, one, as a healer and somebody helping, people through that process, but two, working with a lot of people and talking to a lot of women who have left to do that healing work, as opposed to starting the process before they've left. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it can be done at the same time. People build ships and sail them at the same time, but of course, there comes some obstacles with that. You have to know your strengths and know what you're capable of. I think the place that you're going to also dictates a lot of that. Is it a fast-paced environment? Are you going to expect of yourself to work at the same time that you're healing? Are you able to give yourself grace while you're doing this healing work? And that's really important. And it also leads to the financial aspect of it, right? Because healing requires introspection and it requires rest. And rest is the basis for all productivity. So you cannot skip rest in the healing process and in the practice of going to your next step where you want to be productive. If you have the benefit of doing it before you leave, all the better, right? Because you have access to more in the U.S. in terms of technology, in terms of practitioners, in terms of that space. There's also a cautionary tale associated with that, is that I believe you truly cannot heal in the same environment where you got sick. And so you have to put yourself in a space of seclusion where you're no longer susceptible to the toxins.
Mm-hmm.
That's just factual, that's for all types of healing, at all levels, spiritual, physical, whatever. There's no doctor that's going to allow you to keep smoking and tell you can be cured from lung cancer. There's some practical aspects of it. So
Now, and let
the
me say,
stress.
I don't want people to feel like, oh my God, so I have to leave the country to heal. No, it just
No,
means if
no,
you're at
no.
this particular job, you might need to get a new job. You might
Right.
move to a new home. You might move to a new relationship. You might, right? So I don't
Yeah,
want people to think that that has to be the case.
exactly.
No, I mean, I think that's really good and that's important. What are some of the mindset shifts? And I remember like when we first started, these are things that we talked about, but it's really important, especially now, because what we don't want is people to move solely on emotion, which is very
Right.
important. But I don't want you to be so emotional. I'm gonna get up out of here, and there are some steps that you might have missed along the way. So, what are some of the
Yeah.
mindset shifts that people, women really need to look at and start to look at while they're going through this process of, okay, yeah, I really do want to move abroad. I'm really thinking about that.
Yeah, for me, mindset has to do with understanding universal laws and how you think about the space that you're in and how those thoughts govern your actions. And so, universal laws are things that we can't change, things that we know are going to, gravity being the, most commonly known universal law, whether you believe in it or not, you step off of this balcony, you're going down, right? And there's other things about other laws about sowing and reaping, about creative forces that if we adopt them, they create space for us for things to happen, right? And sowing seeds is both positive and negative. It's, it can happen any way. But the mindset around how your thoughts turn into speech and which also turns into action. And so you have to protect all of those things as you're making these transformations or, transactions in your life. And that has to do with speaking the things that you want for yourself, creating a space where you have quiet to meditate, to pray, so that once you get your mind right, you have control over the way that you speak it, and you're able to, make journals, you're able to make plans without disruption. And it's about creating strength of self, really. And that's really what I mean about mindset. Now, do negative things happen? Do we get caught up in that? Yeah, it's about realizing that there's hurricanes and tornadoes in life. That's also a universal law that these things come in and they go and they transform us, right? We are different on the other side, and so just knowing that and then being kind to yourself in that process, I think is mindset. There's no weak women out here. I don't know how else to say that. The women that I meet in the international space, I have a certain amount of conviction that
That's true.
that they are deserving of a certain thing and also in control of creating that certain thing for themselves. And so that's a strength in mindset.
Yeah.
So when I say there's no weak women out here, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about women who have that strength of mind to be proactive in that thought process.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you don't experience fear or doubt or any of those things. It just simply means that you have made up your mind to really live fully, to really live your best life, and you're going to live it on your terms. And moving abroad or wherever you're going to is a part of that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't have a lot of money when I moved to Belize, but I just had a plan that I was going to open every single door. I mean, like every single door, I was going to talk to people and just create something for myself, So I didn't have a chance to be fearful. It just didn't have a chance to, So on one hand, a fool, on one hand, fearless, but really it's just I was focused on the thing and the goal at the end of the day.
And so what was the goal at the end of the day? What was that goal?
For me, it was to allow myself to be in a space without so many rules and requirements Not to necessarily live a soft life, but a softer life without as many restrictions and in a space where I didn't feel beat down by the system. Because I was one of the people, like I talked about at the beginning, who really did adopt all of the values of the structure, and I lived in it. I was winning, right? I had all of the things, but I also had a lot of stress that nearly killed me right before I was leaving. So I was looking for more than anything a stress-free environment, and I always tell people Belize found me rather than me searching out. You know, I never spun the wheel on the list of countries. I never did all the research that people do. I knew what I didn't want to see. And when I got here, I didn't see it. So that meant the space was acceptable for me, right?
Do you want to call out some of the things, maybe not some of the really horrible things, but some of the things that you did not want to see, that you, or maybe you were just kind of over seeing?
Control. That's just what I would put it. Belize is not regulated, and as regulated as much, I should say. And so that's both good and bad. You know, I would say in the last 20, 30 years, in the name of regulation, transparency, growth, all kinds of intentions behind rules and things that have been put in place in the States, right? And that just isn't here because Belize is a developing country still. Not to say that it won't ever have that. You know, there's all kinds of arguments that are going on right now about development. But it doesn't right now. And for me, that to creating that space of freedom and stress-free meant that I could make my own choices, right? And that's a privilege and a blessing that I do not take for granted. I can choose when I wake up. I can choose whether I'm going to swim today or whether I'm going to go make money. Or, you know, anything. That is the beauty of what I've created here in this space by leaving and sitting still long enough to let the assimilation process work and develop. So that is what I was looking for. And it found me because I sat still for 6 months when I got here. I didn't do anything.
Y'all heard that, right? And it's interesting, you know, I talk, you know, my first transformation, because there's many iterations, right? But it was that 6 months. I call it my 6-month healing sabbatical before I started my business, my practice, and doing this healing work. And I've since had iterations since then. But that is such an important piece that, again, a lot of us miss. And so what I really hear you saying is wherever you go, wherever you end up, you know, don't hit the ground running. Like, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do that, because you know that's how Americans do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and don't take for granted the culture that you're going to. I know that sounds like obvious, right? But Americans is like consider themselves the center of the world, and Americans are not the center of the world, right? So for some reason, we have a tendency to go places and be shocked when people don't behave like us, when people don't think like us, and has a tendency to feel very critical of other places. So that's really important in that process too. Yeah.
That's real. That's all the way real. That's a whole episode right there.
Yeah. I feel like, you know, to the point earlier around, you know, doing a lot. You know, it's funny. So a couple of days ago, I got an award from our county, and during that ceremony, there was a woman who had worked 25 years for the county. And so, you know, they're going through her accolades and the things she's done, and thank you for your service and things. And it's like, okay, so she's looking at other aspirations. She's a life coach, a yoga instructor. She also does meditation. She's teaching. It was like all these different line items of different things. And it's like, why do we feel like we need to do all the things all the time?
Maybe she wasn't doing them all the time. Maybe those were just her list of talents and gifts. That's what I'm going to hope for. You know, I
Hopefully.
don't know.
Well, for me it is, because I got all of that and more, and I'm not
Oh,
doing it all.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
It's
not.
easy
it
to
was
buy into that.
just
Yeah, I mean, we are,
Yeah.
We
as
do
Black
feel like
women,
we
it's like a catch-22, right? Because we get put in this place, and listen, we can look at the vice president who just went through this whole political thing as an example, is that we get put in this place where we're not seen as being as qualified, as talented, as gifted, as deserving. And so in a response to that, we're like, look at me. I am all the things. I am every woman. I can do it all, right? To our detriment, because then we get stuck in that trap of doing it all and doing it all. And really, we just have to be us, because being us is enough. You know,
Yeah.
and that's the affirmation for today. I am enough.
Right. And because on top of that,
You
it's
know,
like, oh, she's
and
also a mother of 7 and she has 5 grandchildren. You know, it's like,
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And
But
then the script gets
Black
flipped
women
when
are
we
like the
leave.
most educated women. Like,
Yeah, we
how many
are.
degrees did you say you had? Like, every woman
I just
that is my
right.
client. I mean,
Yeah,
PhD, JD,
PhDs especially.
like
Yeah,
all the degrees, 2 master's degrees. Why do you need 2 master's degrees?
right.
We have to
exactly.
do that to be
Yeah,
quote
yeah,
unquote successful in this
yeah.
country.
Yeah.
But that,
No,
so that's the
look, I was just
poison.
looking at a degree last night. I just looked at a Harvard degree.
But that's like the poison.
And the other thing is that's also something that we start to look at when we actually really need to work on the healing. We'll say, oh, I'm gonna get another degree.
That part, that whole entire part. So I caught myself.
Yeah.
But look, listen, it's only a certification. It's only 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
It's like you almost feel like you to have those additional things, right? It's in something I already do. It's in digital literacy. I already pretty much do that, right? But if you don't have that certification and that from a governing body, right? So my mind immediately goes to, oh, wouldn't it be great? What would it look like?
Exactly.
I have Harvard on my
right.
CV,
right.
So anywho,
you know, we have all kinds of sages and wise people from thousands of years ago who they didn't have these degrees, but we gave them so much respect for all of their knowledge and things like that. Not to, poop on academia, but
what's interesting about that, I think that a lot of people don't necessarily think like that, because that's one of the rules, right, that you're talking about in America.
One of the rules that I'm talking about. Why are we doing it?
Yeah, that's just how it is. So we just go along with it, where you're in Belize, and it's like, are people educated? And not to say that they're not educated, right? But formally educated in that same way. Do they need to be in order to succeed? And so now you start to look at the differences, and it's like, wow, you know what? These people didn't even go to college, and look at them, and wow,
doing different things.
You went to college and you don't know. You don't know you ain't supposed to walk down that street right there. Like, that's common sense.
About
that. You don't know your history.
Smart.
You don't know civics. You don't know, because I'm looking at half these people side-eyed like, do you not understand what's going on right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the kicker that I'll leave with on that story, just to bring it to a complete circle, right? Because it was like, as she was leaving, she gave like a speech, and I had to calm myself down because I was like, girl, you ain't win the Oscar. But anyway, it was her moment. So I was like, girl, let her have her moment. So, and so she gets ready to walk off, and the guy yells out, good, you've only completed half of your service to us. You still got another 25 more years to go.
Wow. That was a joke, right? That had to have been a joke.
It was a ha-ha, but it wasn't
funny.
But it wasn't
funny. Not funny.
That's where it was, right? So everybody chuckled.
Basically.
Everybody chuckled, but she did kind of stop and look back and went like I've given 25 years of my life.
Listen, I want your
and you want 25 more
kidney, your right kidney. I want it all.
It was crazy. It was a whole, I mean, we, and it's funny because all the Black people in the room like looked at each other. Did that really just happen? Yeah. Anywho.
That's very telling. That's
very
funny.
telling. But you know, it brings us back to this topic of
But that's a Black woman's story, you know. We work, 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 work. And if you ask anybody else, we don't work enough.
Facts. Facts. And we yeah.
Work some more.
Working more than everybody. So we got to get the mindset right. We really got to do the soul work. And so you said Belize found you. Like, how did that happen? How did Belize find you?
You know, there was maybe a series of events that led up to my decision to get on the plane that were not necessarily associated with my decision to move. And that said, so just doing research for other things, information about Belize would pop up, or my international travels, I would meet people from here. And then it so happened that the way my career unfolded at the end, I just wanted to be near water. I just needed to be near water, water, water. I was driving from work to the beach every day. Listen, it was like an hour and 15 minutes from my job to my house, and then another 45 minutes to the beach. And I was doing it. And I was like, and that was part of my inward work, was to go to the beach and journal and be by myself and meditate and things like that. And so when I didn't have work anymore, I was like, I need to be in a place that I can do this all the time, every day, without having to drive. So, and then of course, all the things we talked about before about what that space was. And then just some things turned up, coincidences, people traveling. And then when I got here and was like, I don't want to see, if I'm thinking about coming to this place, I don't want to see any of the madness and craziness that I was seeing up there. And I didn't. I saw so much to learn about, so many interesting things, so many things that I didn't know. And that's what I mean when it found me, because it just pulled. It really pulled. It wasn't any fear. It was a curiosity of, how could I be in this place? What would life look like for me here? Oh, they look like me. Oh, they don't, but they're not really significant here either. You know, I just had all these wonderful thoughts of what could be, and an end to where I was, and it felt right. And I kind of want to say that's really important in your process too, because you want that place to work for you. You know what I'm saying? So I had to have liked nature for Belize to work for me. There's a lot of people who choose Belize because it might be known to be inexpensive or English speaking. But if you can't stand bugs, like it just don't make sense. That's just like the basic part of it. If you don't understand what's going on in this world about climate change, Belize is going to be a hard place to live, because we don't have nightlife like you have in the US, right? Nightlife disturbs wildlife, right? And wildlife, we have to have this relationship with wildlife because we need each other, right? And so little things we do here that's different, right? That call to me. But if you like malls and fast cars and technology and things like that, and that's who you are, you got to go to that place and it's got to call to you. Otherwise, you get there and there's going to be some contrast, some conflict, not only of values, but of everything else, finances, hobbies, times, you know, everything just will be a challenge or an obstacle, right?
As I'm kind of listening to you, it feels like the call and your curiosity outweighed your fear. And so
definitely
you felt that pull towards, you know, that land and that environment. Do you know if you have any like ancestral grounds there or any connection to Belize?
I wonder, because my grandmother, who I think about every day, and I feel like my grandmother speaks to me daily. I sit here with a picture of her garden right here posted up on my wall, and her obituary in the back of my journal. And while I can only go back to the 1940 census in Greenville, Georgia, to see my, you know, ancestors, I do think often about whether this space is my homecoming, and that there's something here pulling me, because it does feel so strong to me, particularly the Mayan heritage. When I look at pictures of my grandmother and my other people on her side of the family, we have the little broad nose and the kind of rounded face and the hair and everything. And we're not tall people. And some of the traditions that I learned from her in her kitchen and in her garden are very much present here in Belize. And I'm looking like, I know how to do that, but it's not necessarily an African American practice that she had. It is some other cultural significant thing that she was doing in our family space. And my grandmother was the youngest of 10, and she was born in 1912 or something like that, right? So not real long ago, her grandparents would have been, between the South Georgia area, maybe Latin America, if that is part of our roots. But I do feel strongly attached to the land here in that way. So maybe when I got here, things unfolded like that in a divine way.
Yeah, the reason why I asked is because when we went to visit some land we have in Texas, and I tell you, I stood on that land and I just felt like overwhelmed. Yeah, it was hard. I was like, okay, we gotta leave. I immediately wanted to. I was like, is that comfortable? Is that comfortable? Is that comfortable? But I felt this connection, and I just wanted to put my hands on the ground, and so I put my hands in the ground, and I just felt this connection. So that's why I asked.
That's I mean, that is so powerful. It's so beautiful to feel that connection, because when you said that, I'm thinking, how many people don't ever feel that connection in their life?
Right.
Just moving through and you never feel that. You don't know what that means.
Because we're so busy, we don't know to stop to feel it.
We're so busy, but also
and you can't feel it. I talk about energy and vibration a lot because in that connection to ancestor and everything, this is wide open. Energy flows. There's no buildings and not a lot of people to get in the way.
I'm here to feel it. And so that's a big part of it. Yeah, because I'm a very, I mean, energy is everything. I remember, and this has been probably about 15, it's been about 20 years now. When I went to India, I remember when I stepped off the plane and I could feel the shift in the energy immediately. And I was like, whoa, like what is going on in this place? And that was the airport. That wasn't going to the ashrams. That wasn't the countryside. That was off the airport. I could feel it.
Right.
So, different places absolutely do have different energies. And really what I hear you saying is you were in alignment. You did the work to really get in alignment with who you are. And you paid attention, you really watched the signs and you listened and you took action.
Yeah, definitely. Hard to do though. I have to be honest. Maybe I was on my third or fourth iteration or attempt at this. Okay. So I don't want people to feel like, oh, I just got to, maybe 3 years prior to that, I did a career change, and maybe a few years before that, some family changes and, all kinds of different things. But this is the one that has worked ultimately for me, and so maybe that's why when I got to this point, all the fear was gone. I had tried everything else already. And I had people that tried to talk me out of it too. I think the first time I tried to move was between high school and college. Right. I wanted to go to the West Coast. I grew up in DC and I wanted to go to West Coast or to the middle of the country. And my parents didn't say it, but I don't think they was having it, so they tried to persuade me other ways. And, I ended up getting a scholarship to a local college. So there I was, stayed in DC, didn't matter. After college, I had a chance to leave again, sweet talked into staying, got another opportunity to stay. Same thing again, end of marriage, chance to leave, chance to go. End of this, chance to leave, chance to go. End of that. So I had to start listening to the universe. All right, into something else. Time for you to finally do it. So maybe at the end of 4 or 5 versions of myself, I was ready.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah.
So you all don't be afraid, to not necessarily get it right the first time. You learn from it and you course correct. And that's all a part of the journey, is a part of the process. So I know we only have a little bit of time left. So once we do all of that, like what are some practical, like really grounded things that we need to do to move, and it's done?
The practical thing is to just kind of be organized. When we travel international borders, we deal with immigration, we deal with different laws, we deal with different currencies, and to just kind of, keep that on one organizational space while you're doing all of these other creative, emotional things, right? So that's the other practical aspect of it. And then just use your basic skills, your basic budgeting, your basic people skills. Pack your patience, carry your courtesy, and amp up on the respect for others, and amp up on the opening of your heart and seeing other people for what they bring. In the U.S., we beating ourselves on we are trained by ego all day long in the US, and that we need to set aside. And if you can do those things at each one of those steps, I think you're going to be winning, right? Sometimes it's hard to do because when we get in the fear space, we put up all of those borders and we don't want to see differences. We don't want to hear nothing, we want what's comfortable to us, which is what's known. And when we're out here in the global space, everything is unknown. And then I will leave you guys with one piece of advice that I was given as a little girl going into new spaces. And that was to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We are told that all the time. And if we can set aside our fear and be comfortable in some spaces that are new and unusual to us, we can do all those things we just talked about in the last 45 minutes. Like when we see something that's foreign and unusual, that should not spark fear. It should spark interest and curiosity, unless it's certain colors, right? I can go on a nature tangent. Nature's given us the skills that we all need to see danger when we need to see it. And it's usually associated with colors, temperatures, our senses stand up, right? So you got to be rooted to use your senses. I could go on and on and on about this.
Right.
It's so good sitting here talking to you.
I mean, it's so good, and it's so much like, and we could just talk forever. I do want to like just really quickly, because all of that was really good. Can you talk a little bit about the money aspect? Because you said like when you came to Belize, you didn't even have a lot of money. Obviously, basic budgeting. A lot of people don't have that. And like you said, America is ruled by ego. We're also ruled a lot by money. So how important is the money process like when we're moving?
So I'll start by saying that's a values-based, answer, right? What you believe about money and what you believe money can and cannot do for you, first of all, right? That said, we can set that aside and talk about it from the practical aspect of you do have to have money. You don't have to have a lot, but what you do is you make a choice about your lifestyle and how you're going to live on a daily basis in your new space. And you adapt to that. You can live big or small out here. You could do it in the States truly, but with some different kind of constraints. So I want people to know that. And the other thing is financial adeptness out here is different than what it is in the States. There's different. First of all, there's cash and credit, and cash is king outside the U.S. And in the last 30 years, that credit thing has torn apart the financial system to be something and put it back together as something completely different. And so we have this credit system in the U.S. that may or may not exist where we're going to. You may not be able to step into it. So you're going to have to learn how to operate in a cash basis if you haven't already done that in the U.S. More than likely. That said, it's an opportunity to start new, because if you're leaving, you're leaving. I almost want to ask y'all to edit this part by what I'm going to say. I'm not a financial advisor or not a financial planner, but everything comes off your credit after a certain number of years. And that's where I'm going to stop, because people make decisions about paying debt and how they're going to stack their finances when they move on, right? And so I'm telling you, if you're moving on, you're moving on.
Did y'all hear that? I mean, she didn't say it, but she said it. So I want y'all to infer what she said.
I'm going to say it as a host of this podcast, okay? Don't pay it. Don't pay it. Just leave. Okay? Just leave.
7 years is out.
Yeah.
So, and what you're saying, Barbara, is so true. And we're going to bring this to a close with this, right? Or with your last thoughts. But when we think about credit and we think about money, when we think about money, we often think about credit. We often think, oh, my credit's going to be ruined. My credit. My dad is still like, oh, no, you can't because my credit, right? 70-something years old. What you going to do with your credit? I mean, you got the house, you got cars, like what else you going to, you know?
Right.
But when we go outside of the country, and we just had the Kellys on from coming from America, right? And he's like, you don't need credit here.
No, you can't get it. Maybe your word means more than your credit in some places. It definitely does. We're in the village that I live in. You know, people's reputations go a lot longer than whether something's written on a piece of paper, you know, here.
And I mean, all of this, your family name, you know, like.
Exactly. It makes a difference. Right. You know, and it kind of goes back to mindset when you talk about money too, because we talked about sowing and reaping. And when I look at the grains of sand out here and all of these trees and this grass that's growing, and I know that abundance is all around me, I should also know that there's abundance of money and flow of things coming to feed me or take care of me or things like that. That's a mindset thing. So when I go to this place and I set myself up, I'm sowing seeds, it's going to come back to me in the way that I need it to come back to. So that's mindset and universal laws at play. And you have to be equipped with that when you're stepping outside of that social construct of the status quo of the U.S. that tells you what to do and what to think. You need to learn how to do it on your own. Barbara drops the mic.
Okay, hold on. Where my hand claps at?
Hard.
Yay! What a great conversation, ladies.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I love talking about this. I have seen more Black women taking this leap in the last few years, and I'm so proud of us. And I want to see more of us doing things that are true to us. That's all.
Facts. Tell our viewers, tell our listeners how they can find you, how they can connect with you.
Oh, please.
Yes,
so they don't ask us in the comments.
Yes.
Times.
No, we're not going to. They can find me on Facebook at Belize Balanced Lifestyle. And that is the storefront wellness space that I manage on a day-to-day basis. And you can text me, message me. You will reach me directly there. You can also reach me at sheretreats.life, where I curate women's wellness retreat experiences and coach people and consult them on life transformation experiences related to relocation in Placencia, Belize, where I live. So that's where you can find me. I'm not hard to find, truly. It's easy.
You know, I'm like Google.
Well, I don't know about Google, but you can, if you do Barb in Belize Balanced Lifestyle, I think I'll show up. You know, something.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, Jessica. This is great. You guys are doing great work. Please keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you all for watching. We appreciate your love, your comments. Share your comments. You know, we respond back. You know, subscribe, share, all the things, buy us coffee, volunteer, all the things, right? And we will see you back next week.